This is Sam-bankman-fried. You see him there, exiting the courthouse.
Can you guess what Sam's new favorite color is? If you guessed orange, you are right. That's because Sam has been arrested.
Success!
And his bond denied. Things have finally caught up with him, and he's no longer singing When Lambo, but instead, his new song will be When Prison. Sam apparently lost $8 billion. That's 16,000 Lambos down the shitter. Now he faces criminal charges with a lengthy jail time if he's convicted of those charges. What exactly are those charges that he's facing? And some of them are a lot more serious than you think. Who else will be joining Sam on his jail tour? And how much jail time could he be looking at? My name is Felix, and those are some of the questions that we're going to be answering in this video. Let's start off with the criminal charges that he's facing. Sam has been charged with 12 counts that include fraud and money laundering at the core. This shouldn't take many of us by surprise, but what should come as a shock is that half of those charges involve conspiracy. Before we dive into what those 12 charges are, who here has heard of the Italian mafia? They are some mean motherfuckers.
Say hello to my little friend!
But in the 1970s, a law known as the RICO law, RICO standing for Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, made a huge dent in how the mafia operated. So you're probably asking, what does any of this have to do with Sam and FTX? This new RICO law pretty much allowed law enforcement to bust people who are both directly involved and indirectly involved in the illegal activities. Before this, only members who were directly involved in the illegal activities could get prosecuted. Here's how this relates to Sam. Half of the 12 criminal charges involved the word conspiracy, which means that Sam was getting extra help carrying out these illegal activities. So there were more dirty hands in this FTX mess than just Sam's. So we can expect more crazy things to happen and more people to get charged in this case. So in a strange way, Sam was acting like this mafia boss running FTX. We'll throw around some names that could be connected to this FTX mess. But once again, Sam's the only one who's been charged, so this is just all speculation. But first, what did Sam get charged with? For the charges that Sam's facing, we're going to refer to this article here by courts.com. And what I'll do is I'll leave the link to this article as well for anyone who wants to have a closer look at it. But a good place to start is so 2 days ago on December the 13th, the day after that Sam got arrested, we had 3 government bodies that levied charges against Sam-bankman-fried. We could see right here by the headlines that the 3 government bodies were the Justice Department, the SEC, and the CFTC here. So what we'll do is we'll break it down in terms of how many charges and what types of charges each one of these 3 government bodies levied against Sam. So we'll start off by scrolling down here, and we'll start off with the SEC. So the SEC, and as before we had mentioned that there were a total of 12 charges that Sam was facing. And here's going to be a breakdown of where the charges came from and what type of charges came from each one of those 3 government bodies. So starting with the SEC, we could see that the SEC brought 2 counts of security fraud against Sam. And we had mentioned earlier as well that the core of the charges either involved fraud or money laundering. So here we could read that these 2 charges here are actually, these 2 counts more specifically are civil securities fraud charges. And something that the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, wrote in a statement when he referred to Sam in terms of the role that Sam was playing in the FTX debacle. Here's what Gary Gensler had to say. So what I'll do is I'll highlight it right here. So he said that, and this is once again coming from the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, we allege that Sam-bankman-fried built a house of cards on a foundation of deception while telling investors that's one of the safest buildings in crypto. So, this from interpretation, this is something that definitely is on the level of a Ponzi scheme from the sounds of it, and also carries a tone of heavy regulations that we should expect in the future when it comes to the crypto industry. So we have 2 counts of fraud here out of the 12 that we had mentioned. And then moving on to the second government body, which is the CFTC, they brought another 2 counts of charges that involve fraud towards Sam as well. So here, more specifically, they underline it for us, but I'll also highlight it here as well. It involves 2 counts of violating the anti-fraud provisions. So total from the SEC and the CFTC, they levied 4 counts of fraud against Sam. And the bulk of the criminal charges, as we can see right here, came from the Justice Department, which brought forward 8 criminal charges right here. And what was really fascinating is if we look at this article, we'll see how often the word fraud comes up. So, for example, what I'll do here is I'll type in the word fraud, and you can see the word fraud highlighted in yellow. This entire article is littered with the word fraud. So that is indicative of the type of illegal activity that Sam was engaging in. And so you can see right here, it looks like we'll move on to the Justice Department right here. So this word fraud alone shows up in almost every single one of the 8 criminal charges. So 7 out of the 8 involve fraud. And the last one, the 8th charge right here, I'll just highlight it over with my mouse, is money laundering. So just from the look of things, 11 out of the 12 charges so far that have been brought against Sam include the word fraud in it. And we had mentioned that the other important thing that that we found really shocking was that half of the charges involve the word conspiracy. So let me type in the word conspiracy here, and I'll highlight it in the article. And we can see here alone that pretty much 6 out of the 8 charges here from the Justice Department involve the word conspiracy. So once again, conspiracy is pretty much the agreement between 2 people to commit a crime. So here we know that there's more than one person at work in terms of the debacle. That's what at least the Justice Department believes. So that's something that we can expect, that there'll probably be more charges on the way for whoever else that was involved, whether they're involved directly or indirectly. And of course, later on in this video, we'll touch on some people that could possibly be connected to this type of conspiracy. So we'll and of course right now this is only Sam that's been charged, and the people that we'll name are this suppositions or this speculation at this point. But with conspiracy, that's something that we should expect, that there's more people involved, and things will probably get pretty crazy from here on. So 11 out of 12 charges involve fraud. The last one is money laundering, and then half the charges involves conspiracy. So it looks like this case is just getting started, and it'll be interesting to see how everything unfolds and what other big names will be associated with Sam and this particular case. And with that, what we'll do is, the big question from here on is, with all these charges, what is the potential jail sentence that Sam could receive? If you think those charges were fair, make sure to smash the like button. But if you feel that Sam deserves more than this, then tell me in the comments below what you think should happen to him. Let's talk about jail time now.
What is he looking at if convicted?
We won't be around if he gets the maximum. Let me put it that way. And you're much younger than I am.
That is Lee Sorkin. He is the former attorney for Bernie Madoff. And in his recent interview with CNBC, when he was asked how long of a jail sentence Sam could serve, he pretty much says that's a lifetime sentence. To give us an idea of the type of jail time that Sam could be facing, let's look at Bernie Madoff. So for anyone who doesn't know who Bernie Madoff is, he is the American financier who ran the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. So his Ponzi scheme ran something in the tune of close to $65 billion, if I remember correctly, and took place over several decades. So he would be kind of like the top scale of the barometer in terms of what the maximum sentence could be. So once again, if if he was convicted on all charges, according to the former attorney of Bernie Madoff, it would pretty much be a lifetime sentence. So let's have a look here at Bernie Madoff, and this is a picture of him right here. So for those who have not seen Bernie, that's Bernie right there. So if we go to Wikipedia, what we're really interested in seeing is the criminal charges that he was found guilty of. So if we look right here and we scroll over it, we notice that once again, there's a lot of commonality between the criminal charges that Bernie had been convicted of and the ones that have been brought forward against Sam. So once again, it's a plethora of charges that involve fraud, money laundering, and then some additional ones were perjury and false filings with the SEC, theft, for example. However, the common theme seems to be fraud and money laundering, and also conspiracy as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, because he had some family members that were involved in his Ponzi scheme. So Bernie Madoff was convicted in March of 2009, pardon me, and he pled guilty to 11 felony charges. And what that actually turned out to be in terms of what his jail sentence was when, if you look at right here, according to Wikipedia, that amounted to 150 years in prison. So of course he had to pay, close to $17 billion in restitution, and he was banned from the securities industry for a lifetime. But none of that stuff really matters if you're in jail for the next 150 years. So once again, Bernie is pretty much the epitome of, how to run a Ponzi scheme, and is probably the biggest fraudster in human history. So he would be somebody that, possibly Sam could be looking at something like that. We won't know, of course, until the trial's over and all the evidence has been collected. But so he would be at the very top of the apex. And then on the next one, in the more recent fraud case, involved the Theranos CEO, Elizabeth Holmes. So let's go and dive into what she did and, the type of jail sentence that she received. And this here is Elizabeth Holmes. So she was the founder and CEO of a health biotech company called Theranos. And here's a closer or a bigger picture of her right here. So some of you may recognize her. She got a lot of coverage in between 2014 and 2018. But more recently, she was convicted of fraud and also sentenced as well. So I believe this happened in the same year, this particular year of 2022. So let's actually have a closer look at her. Let's go to her. Let's go to trusty Wikipedia here. And once again, the two things that we're interested in is seeing what Elizabeth Holmes' convictions were, and as a result of her convictions, what type of jail sentence did she receive. So let's zoom in and have a look right here. So her convictions are wire fraud, 3 counts of wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 1 count. So altogether, she was convicted of 4 counts of fraud. So once again, the theme of fraud is something that's very prevalent when it comes to these type of criminal activities. We had saw that in the charges that were levied against Sam. We had saw that in our last example with Bernie Madoff, and now with Elizabeth Holmes. She was convicted in January of 2022 of these 4 counts of fraud. So when she got convicted, what came along with that is, of course, a jail sentence. And as we could see right here, this jail sentence is just over a little bit over 11 years in prison. And then on top of that, she has a 3-year probation or supervisory provision that comes with it. But the most important part is the number of years that she's serving in jail, and she's expected to serve the sentence in April of next year. So once again, we have Bernie Madoff, which is at the epitome of what a fraudster does in terms of running a Ponzi scheme. And he got the maximum of 150 years in prison. And just more recently, Elizabeth Holmes, she received just over 11 years. And the amount of money that she, defrauded her investors amounted to $140 million. So that is a lot less than Bernie Madoff, which was $65 billion. And according to one news source, and I'll bring it up in a moment, they said that Sam defrauded his investors close to $2 billion. So we could bet that Sam will be getting some sort of sentence in between Elizabeth Holmes of 11 and a bit years to the maximum of pretty much a lifetime. More specifically, according to Bloomberg, Sam could be facing up to as much as 115 years in jail if he's convicted on all charges. Tell me in the comments below, how many years in prison do you think Sam will get? Who else could be involved in this conspiracy with Sam to commit fraud? Some interesting names would be 1. Caroline Ellison, Sam's ex-girlfriend and former CEO of Alameda Research. 2. Dan Freeberg, former chief compliance officer at FTX. And even Sam's parents, Joseph Bankman, who is a tax law professor at Stanford and worked for FTX for almost a year, and his mom, Barbara Bankman, who is the head of a political advocacy group called Mind the Gap to support Democratic campaigns, which Sam donated $40 million towards. Many other names will get revealed since this case is just getting started. Once again, these are only suppositions since no one other than Sam has been officially charged. As always, nothing in this video is financial, legal, or professional advice of any kind. Do your own research and consult with the appropriate qualified professionals before making any decisions about material talked about in this video. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to find out what's next in crypto. And from here, I'll see you in the next one.